A chance meeting on a cross-country flight sparks an unexpected romance between a guarded traveler and a grieving CEO. But when betrayal and danger take flight, will love survive the turbulence? Before we get into the story, comment below where, in the world you are watching from today? Tiana Brooks rushed through the crowded terminal of JFK Airport, pulling her carry-on suitcase behind her. She was running late again. At 28, being always on the move had become her normal way of life. Working as a traveling consultant for a small non-profit publisher meant she spent more time in airports than in her tiny Brooklyn apartment. Final. Boarding call for Flight 1457 to San Francisco. The announcement blared over the speakers. Tiana quickened her pace, her natural curls bouncing as she jogged toward the gate. She handed her boarding pass to the gate agent, who gave her a disapproving, "Look, you just made it, Miss Brooks," the agent said. "Story of my life," Tiana replied with a quick smile. She boarded the plane, making her way down the narrow aisle of economy class. When she reached her row, she saw a man already seated by the window. He looked up from his book and smiled. "Looks like we're neighbors for the next 6 hours," he said. Tiana nodded and struggled to lift her carry-on into the overhead bin. Without asking, the man stood up and helped her. "Thank you," she said, slightly out of breath. "No problem. I'm Nate, by the way. Nate Ward." Tiana Brooks. She settled into her seat, buckling her seatbelt and pulling out her tablet. She had a report to finish before landing in San Francisco. The publisher she worked for specialized in educational materials for underfunded schools, and she was visiting several schools on the West Coast to assess their needs. "Business or pleasure?" Nate asked after the plane took off. Tiana looked up from her tablet. She usually preferred to work during flights, but something about his warm brown eyes made her pause. "Business," she replied. "You?" "A little of both," he said. "I try to mix the two whenever possible." Nate had an easygoing manner about him that made Tiana feel comfortable right away. He wore simple jeans and a navy blue button-down shirt. Nothing flashy or pretentious, just a regular guy. As the flight continued, they fell into conversation. Nate shared his bag of pretzels with her, and she offered him half of her chocolate bar. They discovered they both loved the same true crime podcast and had similar taste in music. "Want to listen?" Nate asked, offering her one of his earbuds. Tiana hesitated. She wasn't usually this friendly with strangers, but there was something about Nate that felt safe. She took the earbud, and for the next hour they sat side by side listening to his playlist. When they landed in San Francisco, Tiana found herself feeling strangely disappointed that their time together was ending. "It was nice meeting you, Tiana," Nate said as they waited to disembark. "You too, Nate. Maybe we'll end up on the same flight again someday," he added with a smile that made her stomach flutter. "Maybe," she replied, though she knew the chances were slim in a world of countless flights and passengers. 3 weeks later, Tiana was back at JFK, waiting to board another flight to San Francisco. Her work on the West Coast had turned into a longer project than expected. When she got to her seat, she froze. Sitting by the window was a familiar face. "Tiana." Nate's face lit up with recognition. "What are the odds?" She laughed, genuinely surprised. "Pretty small, I'd say." "Must be fate," he joked, helping her with her bag again. This time, Tiana didn't even pretend to work. They talked through most of the flight, sharing stories about their lives. Nate told her he worked in aviation, but didn't elaborate, and Tiana didn't push. She told him about growing up in foster care, moving from home to home. "That must have been hard," he said, his eyes full of compassion. Tiana shrugged. "It taught me to be independent, not to get too attached to people or places." "Is that why you took a job that keeps you traveling?" His question caught her off guard. No one had ever made that connection before. "Maybe," she admitted. "I never thought about it that way." By the time they landed, they had exchanged phone numbers. It was just friendly, Tiana told herself. Nothing more. But then it happened again and again. Over the next 2 months, Tiana and Nate found themselves on the same flight between New York and San Francisco 4 more times. It became their little joke. "And we've got to stop meeting like this," Nate would say when they saw each other. On their sixth shared flight, the plane hit turbulence. Tiana, who had never been comfortable with rough air, gripped the armrests tightly. Without a word, Nate placed his hand over hers. The simple gesture calmed her instantly. "I've got you," he said quietly. "We're going to be fine." And she believed him. After that flight, they started texting between trips. Nate sent her pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge, wrapped in fog. She sent him photos of pizza from her favorite Brooklyn spot. Their friendship was growing into something deeper, but Tiana was careful. She had been hurt before. "Don't get attached to what you can't hold," she reminded herself. It was the mantra that had gotten her through years of disappointment. On their 8th shared flight, Nate asked if she'd have dinner with him in San Francisco. "A proper date," he said. "Not just airplane snacks." Tiana agreed, trying to ignore the butterflies in her stomach. The restaurant was a small place near the bay with twinkling lights and a view of the water. Nate was waiting for her when she arrived, looking more handsome than ever in a simple button-down shirt and slacks. "You look beautiful," he said, standing as she approached the table. Tiana felt a blush creep into her cheeks. She had put extra effort into her appearance, wearing a deep blue dress that brought out the warmth in her skin. Over dinner, they talked more deeply than they ever had on their flights. Nate asked about her work, and she explained how passionate she was about bringing quality educational materials to schools that couldn't afford them. "I guess I want to give kids the stability I never had," she admitted. "Books were my escape. When I was bouncing between homes," Nate's eyes were warm as he listened. "That's amazing, Tiana. You're making a real difference." "What about you?" she asked. "You mentioned you work in aviation, but you never talk about it." A shadow crossed his face. "It's complicated. Maybe someday I'll tell you the whole story." Tiana felt a twinge of unease but pushed it aside. Everyone had a right to their privacy. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront. The night was cool and Nate draped his jacket over her shoulders. When their hands brushed against each other, he took hers in his. It felt right. "I know this is crazy," Nate said, stopping to face her. "We only see each other on flights and now this one dinner, but I feel like I've known you much longer." "I feel it too," Tiana admitted. When he leaned in to kiss her, she didn't pull away. His lips were soft against hers, and she felt something inside her open up, a door she had kept locked for a very long time. Back in New York, Tiana found herself checking her phone constantly for messages from Nate. They talked or texted every day now, planning to meet on their next shared flight in 2 weeks. "What if we don't get seated together?" she asked during one of their late-night calls. "Trust me," Nate replied. "We will." Her friend and roommate Maya noticed the change in her. "Girl, you're glowing," Maya said one evening as they shared takeout on their couch. "Who is this mystery man who's got you checking your phone every 5 seconds? Tiana told her about Nate and their strange series of shared flights. "It's like something out of a movie," Maya said. "But be careful, T. You don't know much about him." "I know enough," Tiana replied, but a small voice inside her echoed Maya's warning. Their next flight was different. As soon as she boarded, Tiana could tell something was wrong. Nate seemed distracted, almost nervous. "Everything okay?" she asked as they settled in. "Just work stuff," he replied, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Halfway through the flight, his phone buzzed with a message. He read it and frowned. "I have to handle something as soon as we land," he told her, "but I want to see you tomorrow. Can you meet me at the airport? There's a coffee shop in the private lounge area." "Private lounge?" Tiana raised an eyebrow. "I don't have access to that." "You will," he said. "I'll make sure of it." The next day, Tiana arrived at the airport, following Nate's instructions. A staff member was waiting for her at the entrance to the private lounge. "Miss Brooks, Mr. Ward is expecting you." The lounge was luxurious, nothing like the crowded waiting areas she was used to. Plush leather seats, a full bar, and large windows overlooking the tarmac. Nate waved to her from a corner table. She made her way over, noticing how the staff seemed to know him well. "This is quite a place," she said, sitting down across from him. "I come here sometimes when flights are delayed," he said vaguely. "The coffee is better." They chatted for a while, but Tiana could tell Nate was still preoccupied. Then his phone rang. "I have to take this," he said apologetically. "I'll be right back." While he was gone, Tiana gazed out the window at the planes. Her eyes were drawn to a sleek private jet on the tarmac. Ground crew were loading luggage onto it. She could see the logo on the side of the plane but couldn't make it out clearly. A staff member approached with a clipboard, placing it on the table next to her. "Excuse me, miss. Is Mr. Ward still here? I need his signature for the flight manifest." Curious. Tiana glanced at the paper. There in black and white was Nate's full name, Nathaniel Ward, listed as the owner of Ward Aviation. Her heart sank. She looked back at the private jet on the tarmac. Now she could see it clearly. The same logo that was on the luggage being loaded, Ward Aviation. The man she had been falling for, the one who sat beside her in economy class, who shared her pretzels and held her hand during turbulence, owned a private jet company. He wasn't just another traveler like her. He was someone with wealth and privilege beyond anything she had known, and he had never told her. Nate returned, his phone call finished. One look at her face and he knew. Tiana. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Really?" He sat down heavily. "I should have told you sooner." "Told me what? That you're not who I thought you were? That while I'm scraping to afford coach tickets, you own a private jet?" "It's not that simple," he began. "It seems pretty simple to me," Tiana said, standing up. "You lied." "I never lied," Nate protested. "I just didn't tell you everything. A lie of omission is still a lie, Nate." She grabbed her purse. "I have to go." "Please, let me explain," he said, reaching for her hand. Tiana pulled away. "I've heard enough explanations in my life. From foster parents who promised to keep me, from boyfriends who swore they were different. I don't need another person telling me stories." She walked away, tears blurring her vision. Behind her, she could hear Nate calling her name, but she didn't turn around. Outside the lounge in the regular terminal with its noise and crowds, Tiana tried to catch her breath. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nate. "Please, give me a chance to explain. There's so much you don't know." She turned off her phone and headed for the exit. The flight back to New York was going to be a long one, and for the first time in months she would be sitting alone. As her taxi pulled away from the airport, Tiana looked back once. Through the windows of the terminal, she could still see the private jet with the Ward Aviation logo, the jet that belonged to the man she thought she knew. "Don't get attached to what you can't hold," she whispered to herself. But this time, the words didn't bring her comfort. They just made the ache in her chest worse. Tiana returned to New York with a heavy heart. For 3 days, she ignored Nate's calls and texts. Each time her phone lit up with his name, she felt the same sharp pain of betrayal. On the 4th day, Maya confronted her in their apartment kitchen. "You're moping," Maya said, pushing a cup of coffee toward Tiana. "Talk to me." Tiana sighed and told her everything. About the private lounge, the flight manifest, and the Ward Aviation jet. "So he's rich," Maya said when Tiana finished. "Is that really such a terrible thing?" "It's not about the money," Tiana replied, staring into her coffee. "It's about the lie. He pretended to be someone he's not. Did he actually lie? Or did you just assume?" Tiana looked up sharply. "Whose side are you on?" Maya sat down across from her. "Yours. Always yours. But I also know how hard it is for you to trust people. Maybe there's more to the story." "Like what?" "I don't know. But it seems like he's trying pretty hard to explain." Maya nodded toward Tiana's phone, which was buzzing again with Nate's name on the screen. After Maya left for work, Tiana sat alone in the quiet apartment. Her phone buzzed one more time. This time, it wasn't a call, but a text. "I know you don't want to talk to me. I understand, but please, before you shut me out completely, meet me one more time. If you still feel the same way afterward, I'll respect your decision and leave you alone. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., Central Park by the Bethesda Fountain. Tiana." Read the message 3 times. Part of her wanted to delete it and move on, but another part, the part that remembered how it felt when he held her hand during turbulence, couldn't let go just yet. The next evening was cool and clear. Tiana arrived at the fountain 15 minutes late, half hoping Nate would have given up and left. But he was there, sitting on a bench, his eyes scanning the crowd. When he spotted her, his face lit up with a hope that made her heart ache. "You came," he said, standing as she approached. I almost didn't, she replied honestly. They stood awkwardly for a moment, the easy connection they once shared now strained and fragile. Can we walk? Nate asked. Tiana nodded, and they fell into step beside each other, keeping a careful distance between them. I owe you an explanation, Nate began. And an apology. You're right. I should have been honest with you. From the start. Why weren't you? Tiana asked, her voice quieter than she intended. Nate took a deep breath. It's a long story, and not an easy one to tell. As they walked through the park, Nate told her everything. About growing up with wealth and privilege as the son of a successful aviation entrepreneur. About his older brother, Michael, who had been his best friend and hero. 3 years ago, Michael and I were supposed to fly to London together for a business meeting, Nate said, his voice thick with emotion. I was running late, so I told him to take the company jet without me. I'd catch a commercial flight later. Tiana could see where this was going, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. There was a mechanical failure, something that should have been caught in the maintenance check. Nate's voice broke. The plane went down over the Atlantic. They never recovered. His body. Nate, I'm so sorry, Tiana said, her anger momentarily forgotten. After that, I couldn't bring myself to get on our private jets. Every time I looked at one, I saw Michael. Nate stopped walking and turned to face her. So I started flying commercial. Anonymous, just another passenger. It was the only way I could bear to fly at all. But why not tell me this when we met? When we started getting closer? At first, it didn't matter. You were just someone sitting next to me on a flight. Then, when we started talking, I enjoyed being just Nate, not Nathaniel Ward, CEO of Ward Aviation, the man whose negligence got his brother killed. That's not fair to yourself, Tiana said softly. Maybe not, but that's how it feels. He looked at her with pain in his eyes. With you, I could be the person I wanted to be, not defined by my family's money or my brother's. Death. They reached a small bridge over a pond. The setting sun cast golden light across the water. I understand why you didn't tell me, Tiana said after a long silence. But it still hurts. I've spent my whole life being let down by people who had more power than truth. Foster parents who promised to keep me, then changed their minds when it got too hard. Boyfriends who said they loved me, then disappeared when something better came along. I'm not them, Nate said, reaching for her hand. This time she didn't pull away. I want to believe that, she whispered. Then give me a chance to prove it. His eyes were pleading. No more secrets, just us figuring this out together. Tiana looked at their joined hands. I need time, Nate. I understand. I'll wait. As they parted that evening, Tiana felt the wall around her heart beginning to crack, but she wasn't ready to tear it down completely. Not yet. A week later, Tiana was packing for another trip to San Francisco when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Brooks, this is Sandra from Ward Aviation. Mr. Ward asked me to confirm your flight details for tomorrow. Tiana frowned in confusion. I'm sorry, what? Your flight to San Francisco. Mr. Ward has arranged for you to join him on the company jet. He said to tell you it's time he faced his fears, and he'd like you to be there with him. Tiana's heart raced. She hadn't spoken to Nate since their meeting in Central Park, and now he was inviting her onto his private jet, the very thing that symbolized all his pain and guilt. After hanging up, she called him immediately. Are you sure about this? She asked when he answered. No, he admitted. I'm terrified, but I need to do it, and I can't imagine doing it with anyone but you. Nate, please, Tiana, I'm not asking for anything more than your company. Just be there with me. She closed her eyes, feeling herself standing at a crossroads. What time? The car will pick you up at 9 a.m. The next morning, a sleek black car arrived at Tiana's apartment. The driver took her to a private terminal she didn't even know existed at JFK, and there it was, the Ward Aviation jet she had seen in San Francisco, gleaming in the morning sun. Nate was waiting at the foot of the stairs leading up to the plane. He looked pale but determined. Thank you for coming, he said, taking her hand. Are you really ready for this? She asked. No, he said with a nervous laugh, but I have to start somewhere. Together they boarded the jet. Inside it was luxurious, but tasteful, Leather seats, polished wood, and a small staff ready to attend to their needs. "Mr. Ward, welcome aboard," the pilot said. "It's been a while." "Too long, Captain Phillips. This is Tiana Brooks." "A pleasure, Ms. Brooks." As they settled into their seats, Tiana could see the tension in Nate's body. His knuckles were white as he gripped the armrests. "Hey," she said softly, placing her hand over his. "I've got you. We're going to be fine." He smiled weakly, recognizing his own words from when he had comforted her during turbulence. As the jet prepared for takeoff, Nate's breathing became shallow. "Talk to me," Tiana urged. "Tell me about Michael." For the next hour, as the jet soared across the country, Nate shared stories about his brother. How Michael had taught him to ride a bike, how they had built model planes together as kids, how Michael had always been the brave one, the one who took risks. "He would have liked you," Nate said, his breathing more even now. "He always said, I needed someone who would challenge me." "I think I would have liked him too," Tiana replied. Halfway through the flight, Nate seemed to relax. He showed Tiana around the jet, introducing her to the staff, who clearly respected him deeply. "They all worked with Michael too," he explained quietly. "After the accident, I couldn't face them. I felt like I had failed them all." "Is that why you've been avoiding your role at the company?" Nate nodded. "I've been working remotely, letting my COO handle the day-to-day operations. But the board is getting impatient. They want me back full-time, making public appearances, being the face of Ward Aviation." "And you're not ready?" "I wasn't," he said, looking at her with newfound clarity. "But maybe I'm starting to be." When they landed in San Francisco, Tiana could see the change in Nate. A weight had been lifted, not completely, but enough for him to stand straighter, breathe easier. "Thank you," he said as they disembarked. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," she replied, "but I'm glad I was here." A car was waiting to take Tiana to her hotel and Nate to his condo in the city. "Have dinner with me tonight?" he asked before they parted. "I'd like that," she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Dinner was at a small restaurant overlooking the bay, the same one where they'd had their first date. But this time, there was a new openness between them. "I want you to know everything, Tiana," Nate said as they sipped wine. "About my company, my family, my life." "I'm listening," she said. He told her about the pressure he was under from the board, about his parents, who had retired to Europe after Michael's death, unable to bear the reminders in New York, about his struggle to keep the company running while dealing with his own grief and guilt. "The board doesn't understand why I can't." "Just get over it," he said bitterly. "They see the company jet as a symbol of success. I see it as a reminder of what I lost." "What do you want to do?" Tiana asked. "Honestly? Sometimes I think about walking away from it all, selling my shares, starting something new. Is that what Michael would have wanted?" Nate was quiet for a moment. "No," he finally said. "He loved that company. He believed in what we were building." "Then, maybe that's your answer," Tiana suggested gently. Later, as they walked along the waterfront, Nate took her hand. "There's something else you should know," he said. "Those flights we kept meeting on, they weren't coincidence." Tiana stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "After the first one, I looked up your name on the passenger list. I found out your travel schedule and booked the same flights." He looked sheepish. "I know it sounds stalkerish, but I just wanted to see you again." Tiana wasn't sure whether to be flattered or alarmed. "So all those meetings were planned?" "Only on my part," he assured her. "Your reactions, our conversations, that was all real." She shook her head, trying to process this new information. "I don't know how to feel about that." "I understand," Nate said quickly. "I just wanted to be completely honest with you." They continued walking in silence, the revelation hanging between them. "I should be angry," Tiana finally said. "But after everything you've told me, I think I understand why you did it." "You do?" "You were looking for connection, for something real in a life that had become unbearable." She squeezed his hand. "I can relate to that." Nate stopped and turned to face her, his eyes full of emotion. "Tiana Brooks, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met." When he kissed her this time, it felt different, more honest, more real. For the first time, Tiana felt like she was seeing the true Nate Ward, not just the man who sat beside her on flights, but the complex, wounded, brave person beneath. The next morning, Tiana's phone woke her with a news alert. Nathaniel Ward returns. To public eye, CEO of Ward Aviation, seen at San Francisco Airport after 3-year absence. There was a photo of Nate boarding his private jet, with her. Though her face wasn't clearly visible, she could see herself standing beside him, their hands clasped together. Before she could process this, her phone rang. It was Nate. "Have you seen the news?" he asked, his voice tense. "Just now," she replied. "Are you okay?" "I should be asking you that. I never meant to drag you into the spotlight." "I'm fine," she assured him, though her heart was racing. "What about you? Are you ready for this?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But the board is thrilled. They're already talking about press conferences, interviews, the whole 9 yards. And what do you want?" There was a pause. "I want you," he said, simply. "Everything else we can figure out together." After they hung up, Tiana sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the photo on her phone. There she was, standing next to one of the wealthiest men in the country, about to step into a world she had never imagined for herself. Part of her wanted to run, to go back to her simple life of economy flights and small hotel rooms. But another part, the part that had spent years avoiding attachment, was tired of running. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nate. "Board meeting tomorrow in New York. They want to discuss my reintroduction to society. Will you fly back with me tonight?" Tiana took a deep breath. She thought about all the times in her life when she had walked away from complications, from potential pain. Her motto had always been, "Don't get attached to what you can't hold." But maybe, just maybe, some things were worth holding on to, even if they came with risks. She texted back, "Yes, but this time I'm buying the snacks." As she packed her bag, Tiana wondered what tomorrow would bring. Nate would be stepping back into his role as CEO, back into the public eye. And she would be there beside him, facing a future neither of them could have predicted when they first sat next to each other on that flight months ago. For once in her life, Tiana wasn't running away. She was flying towards something, someone, that made her feel both terrified and alive, and that she decided was worth the risk. The Ward Aviation headquarters occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Manhattan. Tiana stood in the lobby, feeling out of place in her simple navy dress among executives in designer suits. She had agreed to meet Nate for lunch after his board meeting. "Miss Brooks?" A polished receptionist approached her. "Mr. Ward asked me to bring you." "Sup? The meeting is running long." Tiana followed the woman into a private elevator that whisked them straight to the top floor. The doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area with the Ward Aviation logo, a stylized W with wings mounted on the wall. "You can wait in Mr. Ward's office," the receptionist said, leading her down a corridor lined with photos of aircraft and framed magazine covers featuring the Ward family. Nate's office was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. One wall held a large photo of 2 men standing in front of a plane, Nate and a slightly older man with the same warm eyes and confident smile. "That's Michael," came Nate's voice from the doorway. Tiana turned to find him watching her, his tie loosened and his expression weary. "You look alike," she said. "He was the handsome one," Nate replied with a sad smile. He crossed the room and kissed her cheek. "Thank you for coming. I needed a friendly face after that meeting." "That bad?" "Worse." He dropped into his chair, running a hand through his hair. "They want me to do a major press tour, TV interviews, magazine features, the works. The return of Nathaniel Ward, triumph over tragedy." He made air quotes with his fingers, his voice bitter. "Can you say no?" "Not if I want to keep control of the company," Nate sighed. "The board thinks my absence has hurt our stock price." "They're not wrong." Tiana sat across from him. "So what are you going to do?" "Play the game, I guess, starting with a charity gala next week." He looked at her hopefully. "Will you come with me?" Tiana hesitated. "Nate, I don't know anything about galas. I don't even own the right kind of dress. So we'll get you one," he said simply. "Please, Tiana, I can't face these people without you." The vulnerability in his eyes made her resolve crumble. Okay, but I'm not promising to like it. His face brightened. That's all I ask. Later that afternoon, Nate insisted on taking Tiana shopping for the gala. The boutique he chose was the kind of place where nothing had a price tag, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. "Mr. Ward, how lovely to see you," the saleswoman greeted them. "And who is this beautiful young lady?" "This is Tiana Brooks," Nate said proudly. "We need something spectacular for the Aviation Foundation Gala." Tiana felt like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman as they brought out dress after dress for her to try. Finally, she emerged from the dressing room in a deep emerald gown that hugged her curves before flowing to the floor. Nate's expression as he saw her made her blush. "That's the one," he said softly. The saleswoman agreed. "You have excellent taste, Mr. Ward. It's perfect with her skin tone." When Tiana saw the price, over $5,000, she balked. "I can't let you spend this kind of money on me," she whispered to Nate. "Why not?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Because it's too much. I've never owned anything this expensive." Nate took her hands. "Tiana, I know money is a sensitive subject between us, but please let me do this. It makes me happy to see you happy. I don't want to be the kind of woman who takes advantage." "Is that what you're worried about?" Nate looked surprised. "Tiana, you're the least materialistic person I've ever met. You didn't even know who I was for months." After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Okay, but just this once." Nate smiled. "Deal." The night of the gala arrived, and Tiana felt like she was dreaming as she stepped out of the limousine on Nate's arm. Photographers called out his name, their flashes blinding. "Who's your date, Nathaniel?" one shouted. "This is Tiana Brooks," Nate said proudly, his arm tightening around her waist. Inside, the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was transformed into a glittering aviation-themed wonderland. Model planes hung from the ceiling, and the tables were named after famous aircraft. "Nathaniel." A tall, elegant woman in her 60s approached them. "We were beginning to think you'd become a hermit." "Vivian," Nate greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. "This is Tiana Brooks. Tiana, Vivian Miller, chair of our board." "So you're the one who's brought our boy back to us," Vivian said, eyeing Tiana with interest. "I've been trying to get him to attend this gala for 3 years." "I just happened to be in the right seat at the right time," Tiana replied. Vivian laughed. "I like her, Nathaniel. Keep this one close." Throughout the evening, Tiana met more people than she could remember. Executives, clients, old family friends. Everyone seemed fascinated by her, the mysterious woman who had coaxed Nathaniel Ward back into society. "They're talking about me like I'm some kind of miracle worker," she whispered to Nate during dinner. "To them, you are," he replied. "To me, too, if I'm honest." After dinner, there was dancing. Nate led her onto the floor, holding her close as they swayed to the music. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I know this is a lot." "It's overwhelming," she admitted. "But I'm managing." "You're doing more than managing. You're shining." As they danced, Tiana noticed people watching them, whispering behind their hands. She tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the feel of Nate's arms around her. Then a striking blonde woman in a red dress approached them. "Nathaniel," she said, her voice cool. "I thought that was you." Nate stiffened. "Victoria." "I didn't know you'd be here." "Clearly." Her eyes flicked to Tiana, assessing. "Aren't you going to introduce us?" "Victoria Reynolds, Tiana Brooks," Nate said reluctantly. "Victoria is an old friend." "More than friends once upon a time," Victoria corrected with a tight smile. "Before the accident." An uncomfortable silence fell between them. "It was nice to meet you," Tiana said, trying to ease the tension. "Likewise." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Nathaniel, the Johnsons were asking about you. You should say hello." With that, she glided away. "Ex-girlfriend?" Tiana asked. "When she was gone." "Ex-fiancé," Nate admitted. "We broke up after Michael died. I wasn't in a good place." "You never mentioned her." "There wasn't much to say. She wanted the old Nate back, the one who enjoyed the spotlight and the parties. When she realized that person was gone, she moved on." Tiana digested this new information. "There's still a lot I don't know about you, isn't there?" "I'm an open book now," Nate promised. "Ask me anything." Before she could respond, they were interrupted by a tall, distinguished man with silver hair. "There's my son," he said, his voice booming. "The prodigal returns." Nate's face lit up. "Dad, I thought you and Mom were in Switzerland and miss your big comeback? Your mother wouldn't hear of it." He turned to Tiana. "And you must be the young lady we've heard so much about." "Dad, this is Tiana Brooks. Tiana, my father, Richard Ward." Richard took her hand in both of his. "Thank you for bringing my son back to us, Ms. Brooks. Please call me Tiana." "Tiana it is. Now come meet my wife. She's dying to know who's finally managed to get through to our stubborn boy." Nate's mother, Eleanor, was as elegant as her husband, with Nate's warm eyes and gentle smile. She embraced Tiana like an old friend. "My dear, I can't tell you how happy we are to meet you," she said. "When Nate told us about you, we knew we had to come back for this event." "He told you about me?" Tiana asked, surprised. "He couldn't stop talking about you," Eleanor said with a knowing smile. "It's been so long since we've heard him sound happy." Later, as they drove back to Tiana's apartment, she was quiet, processing the evening. "You're thinking awfully hard over there," Nate observed. "Just trying to take it all in," she replied. "Your world is so different from mine." "Does that scare you?" "A little," she admitted. "Everyone there had expectations. Of you, of me, of us." Nate took her hand. "Forget their expectations. What do you want, Tiana?" "I want to..." She hesitated. "I want to be sure this isn't just some fantasy that's going to disappear when real life sets in." "This is real life," Nate said firmly. "You and me, figuring things out together. The rest is just scenery." When they reached her apartment, Nate walked her to the door. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "For being there with me." "Thank you." "For the dress," she replied, "and for not letting go of my hand all evening." He kissed her, a gentle kiss that promised more. "I never want to let go." As she watched him drive away, Tiana felt a familiar fear creeping in, the fear of allowing herself to need someone. But for the first time, that fear was matched by something stronger, the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. The Cool. Next morning, Tiana woke to a text from Maya. "Call me now, you're on page 6. Heart racing, Tiana opened the link Maya sent. There she was in the emerald dress, dancing with Nate under the headline, "Nathaniel Ward's Mystery Woman Who is Tiana Brooks." The article described her as the unknown beauty who has captured the heart of one of New York's most eligible bachelors, and speculated about her background and their relationship. Her phone rang. "Maya." "Girl, you're famous," Maya exclaimed. "Why didn't you tell me you were dating a billionaire?" "He's not a billionaire," Tiana corrected automatically, then paused. "At least I don't think he is." "Well, he's rich enough to make the gossip columns." "How are you handling all this?" "I'm not sure," Tiana admitted. "It's happening so fast." After hanging up, she called Nate. "I'm so sorry," he said when she mentioned the article. "I should have warned you this might happen." "It's okay," she assured him. "I just wasn't prepared to see my name in the news." "Unfortunately, there may be more of that coming," Nate said grimly. "The board wants to announce my official return to full-time CEO duties next week. There will be press." "I see. Tiana, I know this isn't what you signed up for. If you want to step back, I'll understand." "Is that what you want?" she asked, holding her breath. "No," he said firmly. "What I want is for you to move in with me." The request caught her completely off guard. "What?" "I know it's sudden," Nate continued, "but I hate being apart from you. My place has plenty of room and you wouldn't have to worry about reporters camping outside your apartment. Nate, we've only known each other for a few months. I know, and if you're not ready, I respect that, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life." "I love you, Tiana Brooks." The words hung in the air between them. Tiana's heart pounded in her ears. "You don't have to say it back," Nate added quickly. "I just wanted you to know." "I need time," she said finally. "This is all happening so fast." "Take all the time you need," he assured her. "I'm not going anywhere." After they hung up, Tiana sat on her bed, overwhelmed. Nate loved her. And deep down, she knew she was falling in love with him too. But could she really fit into his world? Could she handle the public scrutiny, the expectations, the responsibility that came with being Nathaniel Ward's partner. She thought about her childhood, bouncing from home to home, never belonging anywhere. The idea of having a real home with someone who loved her was both thrilling and terrifying. "Don't get attached to what you can't hold," her old mantra echoed in her mind. But what if this time she could hold on? What if this time she was allowed to stay? A week later, Tiana was in San Francisco for work when she saw the news. Ward Aviation CEO announces return to full duties. The article included a photo of Nate at a press conference, looking confident and poised. She called to congratulate him. "How did it go?" she asked. "Surprisingly well," he replied. "But I missed having you there." "I wish I could have been." "When do you get back?" "Tomorrow night," she said. "I have a flight booked for 7 p.m. I was hoping we could have dinner to celebrate. I have something I want to talk to you about." "Sounds mysterious," she teased. "Good mysterious, I promise." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Have a safe flight. I'll see you tomorrow." The next day, Tiana finished her work early and headed to the airport. As she waited at the gate, she noticed people staring at her and whispering. She was starting to get used to the recognition, though it still made her uncomfortable. When boarding began, she took her seat in economy class, feeling a strange nostalgia. It had been months since she'd flown commercial without Nate beside her. Just as the cabin door was about to close, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Brooks, this is Sandra from Ward Aviation. Mr. Ward asked me to inform you that he will not be able to meet you tonight as planned. He sends his apologies." Tiana frowned. It wasn't like Nate to cancel without calling her himself. She tried calling him, but the call went straight to voicemail. Strange. As the plane took off, she felt a sense of unease. Maybe he was in meetings that ran late. She would try him again when they landed. 5 hours later, as the plane descended into New York, Tiana turned her phone back on. No messages from Nate, but several missed calls from Maya and a text. "Call me as soon as you land. It's about Nate." Now genuinely worried, Tiana called Maya as soon as she was off the plane. "What's going on?" she asked without preamble. "T, where are you?" Maya sounded stressed. "Just landed at JFK. What's happened?" "It's all over the news. Nate's private jet went down an hour ago. He was on his way to meet you in San Francisco." Tiana felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "That's not possible. I got a text saying he cancelled. I don't know about any text, but the news is reporting that he took off from JFK heading west. There was some kind of malfunction over Pennsylvania." Tiana's legs gave out and she sank onto a nearby bench. "Is he—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "They haven't found the plane yet," Maya said gently, "but it's not looking good." Tiana's mind raced. The text. Someone had sent her a fake message to keep her from knowing Nate was flying to surprise her. "I have to go," she told Maya. "I need to find out what's happening." She ran through the terminal, pushing past crowds, her heart pounding with fear. Outside, she hailed a taxi. "Ward Aviation Headquarters," she instructed the driver. "And please hurry." As the taxi sped through the city, Tiana tried Nate's number again and again. Each time it went straight to voicemail. She tried to hold on to hope, but all she could think about was Michael's crash. History repeating itself in the cruelest way possible. "Please," she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was talking to. "Please let him be okay." The taxi pulled up outside the Ward Aviation building. Tiana threw money at the driver and ran inside. The lobby was chaotic, with staff huddled around television screens showing news reports of the crash. "I need to speak to someone about Nathaniel Ward," she told the security guard. "I'm Tiana Brooks." Recognition flashed in his eyes. "Ms. Brooks, yes. The family is upstairs in the crisis room. I'll take you up." The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors finally opened, Tiana found herself in a large conference room. Richard and Eleanor Ward were there, along with Vivian Miller and several executives she recognized from the gala. Eleanor saw her first. "Tiana!" She rushed over and embraced her. "Thank God you're here. We've been trying to reach you." "My flight just landed," Tiana explained, her voice shaking. "What happened? Where's Nate?" Richard approached, his face grave. "The jet lost contact about an hour after takeoff. Search and rescue teams are on site now." "But he was supposed to be meeting me in San Francisco," Tiana said, confused. I got a text saying he had to cancel. Vivian frowned. That's impossible. Nathaniel was adamant about surprising you. He had the jet prepared this morning. A cold feeling settled in Tiana's stomach. Then who sent me that text? Before anyone could answer, a phone rang. Richard grabbed it. Yes? His face paled as he listened. I understand. Keep us updated. He hung up and turned to the room. They've located the crash site. The plane is down in a wooded area near Altoona. And Nate? Tiana whispered. Richard shook his head. No word yet on survivors. Eleanor let out a small sob. Tiana felt her world collapsing around her. After everything they'd been through, after all the ways they'd found each other, she couldn't lose him now. I need to go there, she said suddenly. I need to be there when they find him. It's too dangerous, Richard objected. The area is remote and it's getting dark. I don't care, Tiana insisted. I can't just sit here and wait. Vivian stepped forward. I understand, Tiana. We can arrange for a helicopter to take us as close as possible. Richard looked like he wanted to argue, but then nodded. I'll make the calls. As they prepared to leave, Tiana's phone buzzed with another text from the same unknown number. I hope you enjoyed your last flight with Nathaniel Ward. Now you know how it feels to lose someone you love. Victoria. Tiana stared at the message in horror, the pieces clicking into place. Victoria, Nate's ex-fiancée, had sent the fake message to keep her from knowing about Nate's surprise. But did that mean she also had something to do with the crash? She showed the message to Richard, whose face darkened with rage. That vindictive... He couldn't finish the sentence. I'll have security detain her immediately. As they boarded the helicopter, Tiana's mind was a whirl of fear and hope. She thought of all the moments with Nate, all the things left unsaid between them. I should have told him I love him, she whispered as the helicopter lifted off. I should have said it when I had the chance. Eleanor took her hand. You'll tell him soon, she said with a conviction Tiana wished she could feel. My son is a survivor, just like his brother was supposed to be. The words hung in the air as they flew toward the crash site, each lost in their own thoughts, each holding on to whatever hope they could find. And somewhere below, in the gathering darkness, lay the answers they were all desperate to find. The helicopter circled over a remote wooded area, its searchlight cutting through the darkness. Below, emergency vehicles had created a makeshift command center, their lights flashing against the night sky. Tiana pressed her face to the window, desperately searching for any sign of Nate's jet. We're going to land at the staging area, the pilot announced. Search and rescue teams are already on the ground. When they touched down, Richard immediately took charge, striding toward a group of officials huddled around a map. Eleanor and Tiana followed close behind. Richard Ward, he introduced himself. That's my son's plane down there. What do we know? A woman in a search and rescue uniform stepped forward. Mr. Ward, I'm Commander Hayes. We've located the crash. Site about 2 miles into the woods. Teams are making their way there now. And survivors? Eleanor asked, her voice barely audible. We don't have confirmation yet, Commander Hayes replied carefully. The terrain is difficult, especially in the dark. Tiana felt a cold fear gripping her heart. She remembered Nate telling her about Michael's crash, how they never recovered his body. She couldn't bear the thought of losing Nate the same way. I want to go to the site, she said suddenly. Commander Hayes shook her head. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. It's dangerous terrain, and we need to keep the area clear for the rescue teams. Please, Tiana begged. I need to be there. Richard put his arm around her shoulders. We all do, Tiana. But the best thing we can do right now is let these professionals do their job. Reluctantly, she nodded, and they were led to a small tent set up as a waiting area. As they sat there, the minutes crawled by like hours. Tiana couldn't stop checking her phone, rereading Victoria's threatening message. The police are looking for her, Richard assured her when he noticed. If Victoria had anything to do with this, she'll pay. But how could she have caused the crash? Tiana asked. She wasn't on the plane. Richard's expression darkened. Victoria's father sits on our board. She has access to our facilities, our maintenance schedules. If she wanted to sabotage the jet... He didn't finish the thought, but he didn't need to. The possibility that Nate might be lying injured, or worse, because of a jealous ex-fiancé was almost too much for Tiana to bear. A commotion outside the tent drew their attention. Commander Hayes entered, her expression unreadable. "We've reached the crash site," she announced. Tiana held her breath, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "The good news is that the plane didn't burn on impact," Commander Hayes continued. "It broke apart, but the main cabin is relatively intact." "And my son?" Richard demanded. "We found two individuals in the cockpit, the pilot and co-pilot, both with serious injuries but alive. They've been airlifted to the nearest hospital." "And Nathaniel?" Eleanor pressed, clutching Tiana's hand so tightly it hurt. Commander Hayes hesitated. "That's the thing. According to the pilot, Mr. Ward wasn't on the plane." A stunned silence fell over the tent. "What do you mean he wasn't on the plane?" Richard asked, bewildered. "That's impossible. He boarded this afternoon. I spoke to him just before takeoff." "The pilot is adamant that Mr. Ward exited the aircraft before departure," Commander Hayes explained. "Said there was an urgent call and Mr. Ward disembarked while they were still at the gate." Tiana's mind raced. If Nate wasn't on the plane, where was he? And why hadn't he contacted anyone? Just then, her phone rang, an unknown number. With shaking hands, she answered. "Tiana." A familiar voice came through the speaker. "Nate?" she gasped, her knees nearly buckling with relief. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he assured her. "I'm at St. Luke's Hospital in Manhattan. Where are you?" "In Pennsylvania," she said, tears streaming down her face. "At the crash site. They told us your plane went down." "What?" He sounded genuinely shocked. "I got off the plane before it took off. There was an emergency at the office." Tiana passed the phone to Richard, who spoke briefly with his son before hanging up. "He's safe," Richard announced, his voice breaking with emotion. "He says he'll explain everything when we get back to New York." The helicopter ride back to the city was a blur. Tiana's emotions swung between overwhelming relief and lingering confusion. What had really happened? How was Victoria involved? And what was the emergency that had kept Nate from boarding his flight? When they finally arrived at St. Luke's Hospital, Tiana ran through the corridors, following a nurse's directions to a private waiting room. She burst through the door and there he was, Nate, alive and unharmed, pacing anxiously. "Tiana!" He rushed to her, gathering her in his arms. She clung to him, unable to speak through her tears. She could feel his heart beating against her cheek, solid proof that he was really here, really alive. "I thought I'd lost you," she finally managed to say. "Never," he promised, kissing her hair, her forehead, her lips. "I'm so sorry you were scared." Richard and Eleanor arrived, and there was another round of tearful embraces. Once they had all calmed down, they sat together while Nate explained what had happened. "I was about to board the jet to surprise you in San Francisco," he began, holding Tiana's hand tightly. "Then I got a call from our head of security. Victoria had been caught trying to access our maintenance records. When they detained her, she became hysterical, saying something about making me pay for choosing you over her." "The text message," Tiana said. "She sent me a fake message saying you had cancelled our plans." Nate nodded grimly. "That was just the beginning. Our security team found evidence that she had been planning to tamper with the jet. When I heard that, I ordered the plane grounded for inspection, but somehow the message never reached the flight crew. They took off without me. So the crash wasn't an accident," Richard said, his voice hard. "The preliminary investigation suggests the navigation system was compromised," Nate confirmed. "If I had been on that plane?" He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood how close they had come to tragedy. "Where is Victoria now?" Eleanor asked. "In police custody," Nate replied. "They found evidence on her computer linking her to both the text message to Tiana and the tampering with the jet. She's facing serious charges." Tiana shuddered, thinking of how Victoria's jealousy had nearly cost lives. "I can't believe she would go that far. She never accepted our breakup," Nate said sadly. "After Michael died, I was in a dark place. I pushed her away, focused only on my grief. By the time I came out of it, she had already moved on, or so I thought. I never imagined she was still harboring such resentment." A doctor entered the room, interrupting their conversation. "Mr. Ward, I have an update on your flight crew," she said. "Captain Phillips and First Officer Rivera are both stable. They'll need time to recover, but their prognosis is good." Thank God, Nate breathed. Can I see them? Captain Phillips is awake. He's been asking for you. Nate turned to Tiana. Will you come with me? She nodded, and they followed the doctor to the ICU. Captain Phillips lay in bed, bandaged and bruised, but very much alive. Mr. Ward, he said weakly when he saw Nate, I'm so sorry about the jet. Forget the jet, Nate told him firmly. I'm just glad you and Rivera made it out alive. It was the strangest thing, Phillips continued. 1 minute everything was fine. The next we lost all navigation. Tried to make an emergency landing, but he trailed off, wincing at the memory. You did everything right, Nate assured him. This wasn't your fault. After a few more minutes, with Phillips they left him to rest. In the hallway, Nate pulled Tiana close. When I heard the jet had gone down, all I could think about was Michael, he confessed. How history was repeating itself. And then when I found out you thought I was on the plane, his voice broke. The thought of you going through that pain. But you're here, Tiana said, touching his face gently. You're safe. Because of you, he said. If I hadn't met you, I would never have started flying again. I would never have reconnected with my parents or taken back control of the company. I would have stayed in that dark place forever. Tiana smiled through her tears. And if I hadn't met you, I would still be running from connection, afraid to let anyone close. I love you, Tiana Brooks, Nate said, his eyes filled with emotion. I think I've loved you since that first flight when you shared your chocolate bar with me. This time Tiana didn't hesitate. I love you too, Nate. I was so afraid of saying it, of admitting it even to myself. But when I thought I'd lost you, he kissed her then, a kiss full of promise and relief and joy. 3 months later, Tiana stood in the terminal at JFK, waiting for her flight to be called. So much had changed since that terrifying night. Victoria was awaiting trial, facing charges of attempted murder and sabotage. Ward Aviation had implemented rigorous new security protocols, and Tiana had taken a leap of faith and moved in with Nate. Her phone buzzed with a text. Turn around. She smiled and turned to see Nate walking toward her, casual in jeans and a sweater, looking nothing like the CEO of a major aviation company. What are you doing here? She asked, as he kissed her hello. I thought I'd join you on your trip. He said, for old time's sake. Tiana laughed. Flying economy again? Actually, Nate said with a mischievous smile, I had something else in mind. He led her through the terminal, past their usual gate toward the private aviation section of the airport. Nate, she said hesitantly, are you sure about this? Since the crash, Nate had been cautious about flying, especially on the company jets. He'd made progress in therapy, working through his grief and guilt over both Michael and the recent incident. But Tiana knew it was still difficult for him. I'm sure, he said, squeezing her hand. It's time. Outside on the tarmac sat a sleek Ward Aviation jet, freshly painted with a new logo, the familiar W with wings, but now with a small heart incorporated into the design. What do you think? Nate asked. I had it redesigned. It's beautiful, Tiana said sincerely. As they approached the stairs leading up to the plane, Nate suddenly stopped. Before we board, there's something I need to ask you, he said, turning to face her. Tiana's heart skipped a beat as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Tiana Brooks, he said, dropping to one knee on the tarmac. You've taught me how to live again, how to love again. You've shown me that the past doesn't have to define the future. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring, the same deep green as the dress she had worn to the gala. Tiana felt tears welling in her eyes. For a moment she was that foster child again, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always expecting to be left behind. But then she looked into Nate's eyes and saw nothing but love and commitment. Yes, she said, her voice steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Nate slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, he gestured to the plane. Still want to fly with me? Tiana looked at the jet, then back at the man she loved. The man who had sat beside her on all those flights, who had shared his sorrows and his joys, who had chosen her despite all the obstacles between them. Always, she said. Side by side. Hand in hand, they climbed the stairs and entered the cabin. As the jet prepared for takeoff, Tiana felt no fear, only anticipation for the journey ahead. She had spent so much of her life in transit, never belonging anywhere. But now, sitting beside Nate as the plane lifted into the sky, she finally understood what it meant to be home. It wasn't about the luxurious apartment they shared or the private jet beneath them. Home was the feeling of Nate's hand in hers, the knowledge that whatever turbulence life threw at them, they would face it together. "What are you thinking about?" Nate asked, noticing her smile. "I was thinking about my old motto," she replied. "Don't get attached to what you can't hold." "And? I think I need a new one," she said, squeezing his hand. "Because I'm holding on to you, Nathaniel Ward, and I'm never letting go." The jet soared higher, carrying them into the clear blue sky, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had learned to trust and to love despite their fears. Below them, the world stretched out, full of possibilities and adventures yet to come, and as Tiana rested her head on Nate's shoulder, she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. No longer two solitary travelers, but partners in every sense of the word. "Where to first?" Nate asked, his eyes twinkling with excitement. Tiana smiled. "Surprise me." The world was waiting, and this time they would explore it not as strangers sitting side by side in economy, but as two people deeply in love, ready to write the next chapter of their story together. As the jet leveled off at cruising altitude, Tiana gazed out the window at the endless sky. Once she had been afraid of attachment, convinced that love was temporary and family was something that happened to other people. Now, wearing Nate's ring and holding his hand, she understood that some connections were meant to last. "I love you," she said simply. "I love you too," Nate replied. "Always and forever." And this time, Tiana believed him with all her heart. The end.